Greetings, friends, fellow citizens, fellow patriots, and welcome to this week's edition of the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and I'm the host of this podcast. I'm also the president of the We the People Convention organization. And this podcast and our website, our emails, our text messages, our donations to other conservative groups are all paid for by the generous donations of the donors to the We the People Convention. And we thank you for your support over the past 15 years. I'm wearing a special shirt today. This is a shirt has symbolic meaning to me, and I thought it was appropriate to wear on Memorial Day weekend because this is the shirt that I wore at the first Portage County Tea Party meeting that I spoke at on July 11th, 2009, when my activism began, however reluctantly, and 15 years later, we're still fighting the fight for our country and for individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. I thank those of you who've been with us for those 15 years, and there are many of you, and I thank those of you who are joining us for the first time because you've seen the ads we're running on Rumble, and now we're starting to promote our podcast on YouTube. You can search on We the People Convention on YouTube to find our podcasts now, and we're going to invest some money to try to grow our viewership. Welcome to all of you to this week's edition of the podcast. Memorial Day is a very special day, and it deserves special attention. And I'm going to, just read a message that I post every Memorial Day, and it's called Memorial Day by the Numbers: Casualties of Every American War. And this will be available on our website. If you go to wethepeopleconvention.org, you just search on Memorial Day, you'll see this, this little article that I post every year because I don't think I can improve upon it. And then I'll also put it in our emails that come out this weekend. In my note, I say, each Memorial Day, I am amazed at how many people are confused, and they confuse it with a Veterans Day or simply have no idea what Memorial Day is about. I used to say to people, Happy Memorial Day. But it's not a happy day. It's a solemn day. Memorial Day is a day we remember and mourn and appreciate those members of the American military who have been killed in combat defending our nation and our freedom over history. A few years back, I started putting together this chart showing the numbers of American soldiers killed in action defending our freedom from the Revolutionary War until present day. By my count, 1,320,246 soldiers, sailors, and airmen have been killed in action since the Revolutionary War. This doesn't include thousands, if not tens of thousands, of members of the military who died training for battle or in accidents not directly related to battle. People really react strongly when I give out that large number, 1,320,244. That's a big number. I find that updating this list each Memorial Day focuses my attention on the fact that the fight for freedom never ends and has very, very serious consequences. Freedom is not free, as you and I know. It must be defended every day by every one of us. Too often, Americans forget that. Memorial Day is a day to remember those who made the ultimate sacrifice to defend freedom. Today, this weekend, Memorial Day weekend, I ask each of you to talk about those relatives and friends you know who gave the ultimate sacrifice for our nation. I know for those of us who are much older, we can remember uncles and great grandparents and people who perished in World War I and World War II. But our family remembers, Adam Hamilton, one of our sons and daughter-in-laws and our daughter's best friends from high school, who was killed in Afghanistan. There's the war fights, the fights continue, and people continue to die. And I ask you, say their names, bring them back to life, talk about your memories of these people who gave the ultimate to protect your and my freedom. Be sure to tell the children in your circle, show them a picture, take them to the cemetery this weekend, make the effort this Memorial Day to honor these true heroes and patriots as we should. So if you want to see that, and share that, I'll post it on the podcast page, and I'll put it in the email. And this is the chart that shows every conflict in our history and lists how many people were killed in active duty. And it's humbling. But that's what Memorial Day is about. It's not Veterans Day. You're not thanking vets. You're remembering those who have died in battle fighting for your freedom. And then you have idiots like Hillary Clinton, who says, I'll give you a mission for this Memorial holiday weekend. I want you to talk to two people, friends, neighbors, cookout attendees, about what the Trump proposed budget will be, that it would be a disaster for America and for children. And she put out a list of the talking points, which are lies. Okay, it's going to cut health care. It's going to increase food insecurity, make families poor. It's all bull crap. And a guy that I happen to know, his name is Buzz Patterson, who was the guy who carried the nuclear football for Clinton, responded, or you could spend Memorial Day weekend to honor our fallen heroes in the manner they deserve and not make the cookouts political. I choose that approach. I hope you will choose that approach as well, and you will defend the president. And as we're mentioning Memorial Day, this is just a quick little promises made, promises kept. Memorial Day set for lowest gas prices in over 20 years. Americans celebrating Memorial Day by hitting the road will likely be paying the cheapest gas prices since 2003. Gas Buddy, a fuel savings platform, said Tuesday that it forecasts the national average price of gasoline to be $3.08 per gallon on Memorial Day. That would make it the cheapest since 2021 in nominal terms, but after adjusting for inflation, it would be the lowest since 2003. This is not expected to be short-lived. Gas prices are expected to average around $3.02 per gallon between Memorial Day and Labor Day, with gas prices falling below $3 on some days. American road trip culture remains resilient, Gas Buddy said in a news release announcing their 2025 summer travel survey. Last summer, the national average of gasoline was $3.58 per gallon on Memorial Day. This year's lower price reflects increased oil production that has lowered crude oil prices. Thank you, Donald Trump. 50 cents a gallon less for gasoline is a real impact to American families, despite what the lies the left and Hillary Clinton want to talk about. And so what is this? What is the big story of the week? What must we cover? Well, the House passed the big, beautiful bill. And when President Trump put out, and this is this whitehouse.gov news channel, which I've told you about and you should start going to every day, because President Trump is bypassing the biased media and talking directly to you. And when he posted the passage of the bill, he said, every Democrat just voted against tax cuts, pay raises, and more. Okay? And that's true. If they didn't vote for this bill, if this bill didn't pass the House, we would have had the largest tax increases in the history of America, like $6,000 per family per year. Okay? They voted against that. And that's what you have to do at the picnic. If it becomes political, you need to make those points. And I'm going to give you the evidence to share with people on our podcast, on our webpage, where the podcast is listed when I give you the links. So in the announcement, okay, the House passes version of the one big beautiful bill, but it's only 215 to 214. That's how narrow the margin was. And there had to be a lot of deals made to get to that point. Okay. So the SALT tax, deduction went up higher than you and I would want. There are things that are not in this that we want, but it had to get done, and it got done. Now the Senate will hopefully improve it, as every Democrat voted against the bill to the detriment of their voters and the detriment of America. Senate Republicans are vowing they will make changes to President Trump's big, beautiful bill after it passes the House early Thursday morning. While the end product is likely to contain sweeping areas of overlap with a proposal negotiated by Speaker Mike Johnson, GOP senators made clear Thursday that the House bill can't pass without major changes. Some of the members are demands are contradictory, and some fiscal hawks are demanding beefed-up spending reductions, while others want to soften the House Medicaid language to preserve more green energy incentives. It's going to be fought out. It's going to be passed in the Senate, okay? And it's going to be good. And there's a lot of good in this. So I'm just going to play this short video where, the White House press secretary explains to you what's in the bill.
Beautiful bill passed the House Budget Committee last night, bringing it one step closer to final passage. The One Big Beautiful Bill is perfectly named because it represents a once-in-a-generation opportunity to deliver on the Make America Great Again agenda responsible for President Trump's landslide victory on November 5th. The America First policies in this bill are the reason why Republicans currently have the majority in Congress right now. Passing this bill is what voters sent Republicans to Washington to accomplish. And that's why it's essential that every Republican in the House and the Senate unites behind President Trump and passes this popular and essential legislative package. This bill will be the single most pro-small business, pro-family, and pro-American worker legislation ever. This bill will give Americans the largest tax cuts in our nation's history. When Republicans pass the bill, Americans will be keeping more of their hard-earned money and taking home much bigger paychecks. The One Big Beautiful Bill will deliver some of President Trump's central campaign promises. No tax on tips for our hardworking waiters, waitresses, and service workers. No tax on overtime for our law enforcement officers, our firefighters, and all those Americans who are putting in extra hours to make ends meet. And a large tax deduction on interest payments for Americans who purchase American-made cars. Despite desperate Democrat lies, the biggest beneficiary of this tax cut will be working-class Americans and their families.
So there's a nice recap, okay? And to follow up on President, the WhiteHouse.gov saying, here are only a few of the policies Democrats just unanimously opposed. The largest tax cut in history, raising wages for American workers, strong border security, protecting Medicaid for American citizens who need it by getting illegals and grifters off of Medicaid and making the 6 to 8 million people who are aged 25 to 35 with no physical disabilities to have to work to qualify, right? That's helping Medicaid. They're calling it a cut because we're cutting the grifters. Pay raises for troops, ending taxpayer-funded chemical castration for children, modernizing air traffic control, revolution in national defense, protecting family farmers, unleashing American energy dominance, and reversing runaway spending. That's what the Democrats voted against. That's what Republicans voted for, and that's a big deal. It's a big deal. And it's a huge achievement for President Trump, who personally got involved. And he had to. Why? Because we only had a 1-vote margin. There are about 20 House members from California and New York whose districts aren't conservative. They needed cover. That's why the SALT thing had to go up. President Trump had to make personal commitments that he will go and campaign for them in 2026 to protect them. They also did this. Pro-Trump group, let's see where that goes. Pro-Trump group unleashes 6-figure ad buy in critical swing districts after Trump Capitol visit. So President Trump had to say, I need your vote. What can I do to help you? The Jefferson Rising Fund, a Republican outside group aligned with Trump's political priorities, has launched a high 6-figure digital ad campaign targeting 11 razor-thin House districts critical to keeping the GOP majority in 2026. According to Republican operative with direct knowledge of the plan, the ads begin today and run into next week, laying the groundwork for an aggressive messaging war heading into next year's midterms. The ads aim to blow the lid off the latest liberal lies campaign. False claims that President Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill includes cuts to Medicaid. It doesn't. The list of members that are in districts that they're doing this are in Arizona, 2 districts, California, 2 districts, Colorado, 1, Iowa 1, Michigan 1, PA 3 districts, and Wisconsin 1 district. That's smart, right? That's how you play the game. You can't say, hey, I need your vote, and then have them go lose. If we lose the House, they're going to be impeaching Trump. Trump understands that. It's the art of the deal. He knows how to play the game. So don't be, down to these people who are saying, oh, there's not enough cuts. There aren't enough cuts. The Senate is going to bring in more cuts. I think it's going to be better after the Senate. Some people think they're going to screw it up. I don't know. I just know that Trump is running this deal. Trump is in charge, and a lot of senators will be up for election in 2026. That's going to give the Republicans plenty of incentive to play ball, okay? Because what are we fighting? When the Democrats are voting against this, yeah, here's what the Democrats are for. I put this in this morning because I just couldn't skip this story. It's so outrageous. Joe Biden's $93 billion scandal that no one's talking about yet. Listen to this, folks. It's unbelievable. During a blistering Senate Appropriations Committee hearing, Senator John Kennedy was visibly floored after Energy Secretary Christopher Wright dropped a bombshell. The Department of Energy handed out a staggering $93 billion in loans and commitments during the final 76 days of the Biden administration, a figure that more than doubled the total loans from the previous 15 years combined. 15 years, $93 billion. But listen how bad this is. Kennedy, in classic fashion, drilled in with precision. The 76-day period you're talking about, that's the period between the time President Trump was elected and President Biden left office, right? That is correct, Wright confirmed. Kennedy said, didn't mince words when he asked how any agency could properly vet such massive spending in such a short window. How do you do due diligence on one loan, much less $93 billion? Right answer was damning. I think it's probably pretty clear it wasn't done in many cases, he said. There were commitments made from businesses that provided no business plan, no financials, no numbers, no indication of financial solvency or how this project actually worked. In other words, they gave loans, $93 billion of loans to people who had no business plan, had no reason to ask for the money. Listen to this. The senator appeared almost incredulous and asked for clarity. So you're telling me that the Department of Energy in 76 days before their boss was going to leave office gave or loaned money to entities that had no business plan? Correct, Wright said. No financials getting out. Correct. I've come in with great concern about how this great institution has been run and how American taxpayers' money has been handled. He acknowledged his department is now conducting a sweeping review and working to get the money back. They're going to vote against the Trump budget when they were stealing $93 billion. And he talks in the article, which I'll link to, that they're going to pursue criminal charges because this is theft. It's fraud. $93 billion, folks. When Doge is fighting to cut $100 billion here and there, and Trump is trying to bring in $100, $200, $300 billion in tariffs, you're just throwing away $93 billion. That's why you're on the side you're on. That's why anyone who brings up to you that the Trump budget is going to destroy the country at a picnic, you can tell them where to stick that hot dog. So then Trump, bang, wins. They for all night, they do the bill. It's a big victory. Does Trump take a day off? Does he go to play golf? No, baby, no. It's Thursday, Friday. It's like drinking from a fire hose. What does he announce? He announces the Golden Dome for America. President Trump this week took important steps to advance his Golden Dome missile defense system, and not a moment too soon. For years, administrators of both parties have failed to devote sufficient resources to missile defense, even as China and Russia have sprinted to develop new ways to threaten the American homeland. Ever since Star Wars, they poo-pooed it. They didn't support Reagan, and they still haven't, folks, and we're in real jeopardy. Our margin of safety has badly eroded in the face of these adversaries. Ballistic missiles, hypersonic and cruise missiles capable of striking the homeland with either conventional or nuclear warheads, as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth said on Thursday. Trump, who heralded the project in his Oval Office press conference Tuesday, promised it would cost about $175 billion and be fully operational by the end of his term in 2029. I don't think that's going to happen. I hope so, but it's going to take longer and cost more. It's likely to be more expensive than that and take much longer to field. But the president's vision for better homeland missile defense is laudable and necessary. The massive undertaking aims to build America's modest existing homeland ballistic missile defense with a modernized and greatly expanded architecture, because it's not just about missiles now. It's about drones, right? It's about all this stuff. And now Canada has said we'll contribute like $25 billion to be included in this. This was malfeasance. This was the Senate, and the Defense Department and every administration from George Bush to senior to junior to, all of them. They've put us at risk. China and Russia have developed space-based weapons. And now Trump's addressing it. And again, in the big, beautiful bill, folks, the money to complete the border wall is in it. We're finally going to seal the southern border permanently with a physical defense system. Okay? It's not small stuff. This is all major stuff. And this is another major thing that Trump did, and really necessary. Trump plots Manhattan Project 2 and nuclear power push. Donald Trump is poised to sign an executive order. He signed the executive order that would create a nuclear Manhattan Project designed to help the U.S. win the global race for artificial intelligence. The order fast tracks the development of nuclear power stations in the United States, which would then supply the huge data centers required by AI. Okay? He signed the bill. Okay? And that's what matters. We need to get on this like now. It's critical, just like the Manhattan Project won, that the United States win this race. China has huge resources. They are massively focused on artificial intelligence. If we don't unleash America's innovation and American entrepreneurs and American construction and bold moves, we will lose the Manhattan Project too. We just can't do that, okay? And so even though the United States, the U.S. was the first country to develop nuclear power and has 94 nuclear reactors, supplying 97 gigawatts of energy, which gives it the largest nuclear output in the world, but it's only like 4% of our energy. We can do so much better. And a lot of these are going to be they're like micro reactors. They're literally reactors that you could build next to a data center to give the energy for the data center. But we can't take 4 years to do this. And I was talking to a friend earlier this week saying the one thing that I wish President Trump would ask us, we the people, to do more. It's too much of a spectator sport. What can you and I do? Like, for instance, is there a hotline where we can report illegal aliens in our community to our local sheriff or ICE or someone to help deport the 12 million we got to get out of here? Why isn't he asking us to do more? I think it's a mistake, and I'm going to be messaging that to the Trump administration. We, the people, need to defend our country, okay? And so when you talk about the Manhattan Project, I want to see industries mobilized. I want to see, people that are making cars, making nuclear reactors or something. I don't know what the answer to that is, but we need to do more because we're in an arms race and there's no losing. There's no losing. If we don't win the AI race and the energy race, we're going to be slaves. Trust me. It's that bad. And so I'm glad to see Trump's sense of urgency, but it's got to be even doubled or tripled. Okay, and I'll talk more about that as we go along. Trump also is not giving up on, making America great again by what? Bringing back manufacturing and increasing the middle class. Okay, so what did he do? The budget passes, everybody's excited, and he just comes out and slumps a stock slide as Trump threatens tariffs on Apple and the EU. Okay? No fear. He's not messing around. He's not playing for the stock market. He's playing to defend America. Stock slid on Friday after President Donald Trump threatened new tariffs targeting tech giant Apple and the European Union. Dow Jones Industrial Average dropped 240 points. Forget about it. Who cares? It'll come back up. Okay? These are all negotiating tactics. Shares of Apple declined nearly 2.6% on Friday. In social media posts, Trump urged Apple to manufacture iPhones in the United States, criticizing the company for plans to ship some production to India from China in an effort to avoid tariffs slapped on China. If Apple fails to ship iPhone manufactured in the United States, Trump said the company would face a 25% tariff. Okay? And then Trump, minutes later, issued a social media post slamming the European Union over its trade posture that he described as very difficult to deal with. In response, Trump said he's recommending a 50% tariff on goods from the European Union to begin on June 1st. Okay? He says they're dragging their feet. They're not coming to the table, and he's not going to have it. And so the stock market said, shut up. This is existential. He means business. You're going to move your plant here and you're going to make it here or you're going to get penalized. We all get it. Everyone should get it. Talk about that at your Labor Day picnic, okay? Then I talked about it last week, but now it's really exploded. You know, I posted this story last week because her audio of Biden being completely out of it tied into with this book saying that Biden was completely incapable of being president for years, and then the auto pen scandal. This has just exploded. Okay, and so there are some truly disturbing facts coming to light now as how we analyze the complete special counsel her interview with then President Joe Biden and how it reveals beyond the doubt of the most committed Democratic partisans that Joe Biden was completely out of it when he was acting as president. The developments are also raised some serious questions about the supposed Joe Biden presidential pardons and other actions, which he gave blanket pardons to several members of his own party, among others. It just brings up all kinds of questions. And so what do we got? We got the House, Comer, and the Senate are going all out to investigate. They've called on the top Biden officials in the White House to come testify, and they've said if they won't do it voluntarily, they're going to subpoena them under oath. They haven't said they're going to bring in Jill Biden yet or the family, but they're probably going to, because folks, this is the biggest scandal in U.S. history. Okay, and so I want to read this little. There's 4 questions. Okay, about the Biden health cover-up, because we've got to ask these questions. And the leftists try to say, we're exposing the cover-up, so you should forgive us. Yeah, I'll have Megyn Kelly's destruction of Jake Tapper on that coming up next. And they're trying to shame us, like, Joe Biden's got prostate cancer now. You can't go after him. Hell yes, we can. And hell yes, we better. Why? Okay. Joe Biden was both senile and cancer-ridden during the last years of his presidency. That much is absolutely clear. According to the Original Sins book, Biden was exhibiting signs of senility for years, back in 2019. His staff worked to cover it up, and the compliant media did its least to investigate. This week, we found out that Biden also had stage 4 prostate cancer, which has already metastasized his bones. There's virtually no way that nobody knew about cancer until this week. It's a slow-growing cancer. We just don't buy it. This is, to put it mildly, one of the biggest scandals in American history. The scandal raises a series of serious questions. First is the obvious. Who the hell was running the White House while Joe Biden's brain wasn't working? The obvious suspects include Jill Biden, who must have known about Biden's senility, Mike Dolan, former Biden advisor, Jeffrey Zients, Biden's chief of staff, and even Hunter Biden. Okay? And there's a whole list of other people that are named that, Ed Martin, the DOJ guy who they stopped from becoming Judge Pirro is now taking his place as the DC district attorney. But he's got a list. He knows who was using the auto pen, and they're going to investigate it. The second question is similarly obvious. How long did the Biden family know about Biden's infirmity? Where was Jill? There's people talking about this as elder abuse. Literally. This guy was not capable. They should have had the 25th Amendment. They should have never ran him. They knew this before 2020, folks. He was an empty suit they knew they could manipulate. And this is unbelievable what happened. And people need to be charged. You can't just assume the presidency, okay? there's a third question. Where the hell was the legacy media while all this was happening? The job of the media is to investigate signs of corruption and symptoms of corruption and misconduct, and they didn't. It was perfectly obvious to everyone with a prefrontal cortex and working retinas that Joe Biden was in dire mental condition by 2022. The media wasn't demanding answers. They were covering for them. Finally, there's a fourth question. Who can be trusted at this point? It's easy to point to the Democrats' cover-up of Biden's ailment as proof of their uniqueness, honestly, but the reality is less comforting. Self-interest and malfeasance are human universals, and if the American public are to know the truth about any of their elected officials, they require systems that demand answers. This means, at the very least, that Congress ought to immediately pass a bill demanding yearly, complete, and transparent physical and mental tests of the presidents. And hell, I think we should do that for congressmen, including drug testing. Oh, yeah, they wouldn't pass that, would they? Right? Because we got big problems, folks. These people aren't all there. We've had 6 Democrat congressmen die in the last 6 months. Why were they still in office? Nancy Pelosi had a meltdown during the big, beautiful bill where she started speaking incoherently. What the hell is she still doing there? She's stealing your money. That's what she's doing there. That has to end. That's why this is a serious crisis. So let me just go and play this clip from Megyn Kelly, just destroying Jake Tapper, who's trying to get away with gaslighting you about, we didn't know. We couldn't have known that Joe Biden was completely incompetent, right? Yeah, watch this.
I did ask Joe Biden to be transparent about his health records in an interview in 2020. I did ask him about the fact that voters thought that he was not transparent at all. No,
he promised you that he would be transparent about his health records, and then he wasn't. And when you sat with him again, including 1 month after the Jackie Walorski thing, you didn't ask him about it. You didn't follow up on the fact that he was falling up the stairs, that he was losing his train of thought regularly, that he was slurring, that he was incomprehensible, that he was getting lost on the White House lawn. You sat right across from him and you asked none of that, notwithstanding the fact that he had promised you he would be fully transparent about his health issues. You know as well as I do that there's a way of, you can say, hey, there's this poll on your age, or you could say, you just forgot that Jackie Walorski was dead. You asked where she was moments after watching a videotape tribute to her. You lowered the flags at the White House after she died. This happened 13 days before you sat with him. There is a way of pressing a man like that on the actual infirmities to bring it home to him and to the audience, and you didn't do it. It wasn't just that. I mean, you sat with him a couple of times in the course of his presidency, and these issues were not pressed. Well, there was at least that time, and then there was the time at the beginning. And but separate and apart from that, you covered the Biden's presidency. No. Let me just finish my point. You covered the Biden presidency. Okay, right. And it was 13 days after the Jackie Walorski thing. But you covered the Biden presidency aggressively throughout the 4 years, and you didn't cover mental acuity hardly at all. I mean, time and time again, when issues came up, you seemed to be running cover for the president. You didn't seem interested. Do you want to apologize to Lara Trump now?
I've already apologized to her. I called her months ago.
I feel angry because she was right. And not only did you not allow her to make her comments, but you seemed to try to humiliate her. You had a hostility toward the position, but she was.
So there you have it. And she's talking about Laura Trump came on in like 2022 and just said, Biden is incoherent. And Jake Tapper goes, he's a stutterer. Do you realize what you're saying to everybody has a stutter? It was insane. You and I must win the messaging war. You cannot let anybody get away with this idea that the media didn't know. You have to use this to destroy any credibility that the media has with anyone you know. Because if they're still watching ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, CNN, if they're reading the Washington Post, they're reading the New York Times, they're being lied to. They were lied to. And you can never forgive them. And you can never forgive anybody who voted in for Democrats for you have to make it clear to them, you were lied to. You should never vote for any Democrat again. The people who say defend democracy have had 3 elections with no democracy. They had no primary last year for the president. They wouldn't let RFK Jr. even run in the primary. Then Joe Biden dropped out and they didn't have another primary to get frickin' Kamala to be in. No elections. You're supporting the defenders of democracies who are destroying democracy. And then they just threw out this David Hogg kid when they had an election for the DNC. I have to message this. You're not forgiven. You did it on purpose to destroy our country. You lied to me about everything, about the Green New scam, which you called the Inflation Act. Had nothing to do with inflation. It had to do with stealing $93 billion to give to your friends. We must crush the Democrat Party. They have to cease to exist as a party, and the legacy media is done. And it's happening, but you got to make sure people know. Show them this Megyn Kelly clip. It'll be on our podcast page, okay? And then Trump is at war with our enemies. And thank God, because no one else would do this. So we know that he's been after Harvard because why? Harvard's the pinnacle. If he can crush Harvard, all the rest of these schools, completely fold. So he's what? He's finding them for their DEI practices. He's taking billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars of grants away. I think it was maybe $2 billion worth of grants away from them. What did he do this week? Trump administration revokes Harvard's authorization to enroll international students. This is huge. They've got like 7,000 international students. And if they can't come there, that's hundreds of millions of dollars in tuition, okay? The Trump administration revoked Harvard's ability to enroll in international students on Thursday, dramatically escalating the administration's fight with the university and threatening thousands of current students. The letter addressed to Harvard President Garber, Department of Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem wrote that Harvard Student Exchange Visitor Program certification has been halted effective immediately. The revocation would prevent Harvard from enrolling any international students for the 25-26 academic year. Harvard currently hosts more than 6,000 international students. Of course, they got a judge to step in and put a stay on that, but I got news for you. They ain't going to win this. Because the Constitution is clear. The federal government is in charge of all immigration in this country. And student visas are part of it. It's clear as a bell. This leftist judge can say, we're going to put a stay on it. It's going to be appealed and they're going to lose. Okay? But this is how you fight. Okay? This is how you fight. Because it is clear that part of what has happened to our great nation is that, and Steve Bannon, who's a graduate of Harvard, went off on this. The Ivy Leagues used to give us our best military generals, our best government workers at the state, local, and federal level. And now they're only giving us anti-American haters who are destroying our country, who are on the boards and running these woke companies that are destroying our children and our families. You can't make America great again unless you take on this problem head on. And now, kids, I'm going to give you some that I haven't heard anybody talk about, and this is a wow. Listen to this. Trump DOJ weaponizes False Claims Act lawsuits to target DEI and higher education. Oh, what's this about? The Justice Department on Monday launched a new civil rights fraud initiative that will use the False Claims Act, to investigate and pursue claims against federally funded entities that knowingly violate civil rights laws, including colleges and universities. The act, originally passed by Congress in 1863 to address fraud by defense contractors during the Civil War, will now be used to work to ensure universities and others do not allow civil rights abuses, such as favoring one race over another, like the Ivy Leagues did when they wouldn't let Japanese American and America's Asian Americans get into Harvard and Yale and those Penn and places like that, that they let in blacks who weren't qualified. Okay? All the DEI stuff, anti-white racism, institutions that take federal money only to allow anti-Semitism and promote divisive DEI policies, anti-white policies, are putting their access to federal funds at risk, Attorney General Pamela Bondi stated in a news release announcing the initiative. The act allows, listen to this, the act allows private citizens to file complaints on behalf of the government called Qui Tam lawsuits, Q-U-I-T-A-M lawsuits. Never heard of it. Against those who have allegedly defrauded the government. The department stated, adding that those who successfully bring Qui Tam actions may receive a portion of the settlement, of the recovery. So any American citizen can say this government agency promoted this person because of their race, and I can prove it, and if they win, they get money. Whoa, baby. Essentially, whistleblowers get a share of any fines, which means universities that hide pro-DI efforts by renaming them or conducting them under the radar would be at risk from campus employees who want to put them out, want them outed to potentially earn a payout. A university that accepts federal funds could violate the False Claims Act when it encourages anti-Semitism, refuses to protect Jewish students, allows men to intrude into women's bathrooms, or requires women to compete against men in athletic competitions. That's a violation of Title IX. Colleges and universities cannot accept federal funds while discriminating against their students. A source who attended a strategy meeting on this new anti-DI initiative told the College Fix on condition of anonymity that I don't think our elite universities have any idea what is about to hit them. Whoa. These Qui Tam lawsuits sprout like mushrooms after a rainstorm, and they are financially ruinous to defend against. Even if they succeed in fending one off, more can follow. The process itself is the punishment. Oh, does that sound familiar to the DOJ, to the Bidens, to all the lawfare that Comey and Strzok and Page, all right? All those guys did? Oh, yeah, the process is the punishment. This is a perfect karma for the kangaroo courts these universities conducted under their weaponized Title IX programs that Barack Obama instituted, persecuting students and faculty members for their microaggressions without a defense, without due process. Remember that? Remember the Obama years when they did that? A person could accuse a man of rape and they couldn't defend themselves. In the end, he said, university general counsels and their insurance companies are going to be the ones cleaning out the dead and dying DEI rot. My advice to anyone following this is to buy more popcorn because this is going to get good. I'm going to post this article. You're going to go to wethepeopleconvention.org and you're going to share it with everyone because we want all of you reporting this. We want everyone reporting this. And I'll follow up and figure out if I can get a way to make it easy for you to report. Like, is there a website that you can go and say, I want to report this? Remember I said President Trump needs to ask us to do more? We the people need to defend this country? This is a way to do it. Wow. Is that a wow? Are you going to share that? Man, I don't know what else you can do. Now, I know many of you are frustrated. We keep saying, when is someone going to prison? When are they going to be charged? What's going on? I posted this from last Sunday. Kash Patel and Dan Bongino gave an exclusive interview to Mario Bartiromo, and I mean exclusive. They say at the end, we would only do this with you because you've been reporting on all this corruption forever. In this interview, which you can watch at wethepeopleconvention.org, on the video section, they answer your questions. They tell you what's going on with Epstein and with the assassination attempts, what's going on with all these investigations. It's an honest take, and they're making you clear. This stuff takes time, okay? Now, people came out, like people on Steve Bannon's show and some other people, Tucker Carlson, criticizing him because they said, the evidence we see, Epstein hung himself, okay? But I believe Dan Bongino. I don't think Dan Bongino would lie to us. He said, Kash said, Epstein killed himself, okay? That may be hard for you to believe. You may not want to believe it, but if Dan Bongino saw the evidence and that's what he concludes, I believe him. Because he has a record of telling us the truth. It's undeniable. You need to watch this and share it to get a clue of what's going on. They're not doing nothing. They're doing a ton of things, and it's a hell of a hard job. And I wanted to share that with you. And now I want to share with you that they're not just doing nothing, and people are being charged. U.S. Attorney Alina Habba announced federal charges against Democrat Rep. LaMonica McIver for assaulting ICE agents, right? Now, remember, this ICE thing happened, and this black representative, Democrat, was pushing ICE agents and was breaking into the place. And the Newark mayor got arrested on the scene. And what did the Dems do? What did Schumer say? What did Hakeem Jeffries say? Hakeem Jeffries said, don't you touch him. I'm warning you, this is a red line. If you do, and OAC said, don't you do this. And I said, oh boy, this is a test. Are we real or not? Are we going to charge this congressman or not? Because the Dems are blowing smoke. We run the DOJ. You can't tell us there's going to be consequences. Did she break the law or not? Well, she did. And we charged her. This is a big deal. We crossed the Rubicon. U.S. Attorney Alina Habba announced federal charges against Democratic Rep. LaMonica McIver for assaulting ICE agents. Today, my office has charged Congressman McIver with violations of Title 18 U.S. States Code Section 111A and 1 for assaulting, impeding, and interfering with law enforcement, Habba said on a Monday evening. No one is above the law, politicians or otherwise. After a thorough review of the video footage of Delaney Hall and a full investigation from HSI, the U.S. Attorney for the District of New Jersey has made the determination to charge Congresswoman LaMonica McIver for assaulting, resisting, and impeding law enforcement. We thank our brave ICE law enforcement officers for the service to this great nation, and we will not let anyone interfere with them. She also charged the New York mayor, okay? The Newark, not New York, Newark, New Jersey mayor. Actions, arrests, charges, and I think convictions, because this is going to be in a federal court, not in a state court, okay? And as we talked about with New York, with Latina James, Turley or one of those guys said, in federal courts, you get better juries, okay? They're not just from Newark. They're from a broader area. It continues. This is another big thing. Feds to investigate Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson for preferential hiring of black people. Okay? What does this mean? The U.S. Department of Justice and Equal Opportunity Employment Commission are preparing to investigate self-professed progressive Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson after he admitted that he prefers to hire black people. He's not a progressive. He's a frickin' card-carrying commie. He's a commie SOB. Okay? And he should never have been elected in Chicago. Okay? But he should be investigated. Federal authorities are looking to determine if the Democratic mayor is breaking civil rights laws with discriminatory hiring practices in the wake of remarks he made at the Apostolic Church of God in Woodlawn, Illinois on May 18th. During his comments at the church, Johnson congratulated himself for having the most diverse city hall in Chicago history, and even claimed that hiring black job candidates is looking out for everyone because black people are the most generous people on the planet. Got that? Got that? Johnson took great pride in pointing out that the positions of deputy mayor, Department of Planning and Development chief, chief operating officer, budget director, and senior advisors are all now held by black men and women. But in her letter informing Chicago about the coming investigation, Trump Assistant Attorney General Harmy Dillon wondered if Johnson's possibly discriminatory hiring policies holds throughout the city government and just not among top officials. If these kinds of hiring decisions are being made for top-level positions in your administration, then it begs the question whether such decisions are also being made for lower-level positions. In response, Johnson released a percentage of employees by race and ethnicity for his administration. He claimed that 34.3% of City Hall employees are black, 30.5% are white, and 23.8% are Hispanic, and 6.7% are Asian. That's diverse, but does that really reflect the population of Chicago? Does it really? So, again, there's a new sheriff in town. His name is Donald J. Trump. And things are happening, but not everything you want to have happening. But go watch the Kash Patel, Dan Bongino interview and get some perspective. Okay? And then I thought this was another really good thing. Attack, relentlessly attack the communist left and our enemies in this country. DOJ Legal Eagle teases potential new target for weaponization group. Ed Martin, newly appointed to lead the Department of Justice Weaponizing Working Group, said Thursday that he intends to examine how bar associations across the country may be targeting conservative attorneys. Bar associations are nonprofit organizations. They aren't allowed to be political. They have been attacking, including Ed Martin himself, every conservative attorney in the country in a way to do what? To deny Trump and us legal representation. I can tell you over the 15 years that I've been active in the Tea Party movement, from the time we started, I told you I'm wearing this shirt because our first event in July 11th, 2009, we were going to take buses to Washington. I'm not stupid. I know we need insurance in case something happens, so I'm personally not going to get sued. So I wanted to incorporate. I went to 4 different attorneys. The first 3 attorneys said, oh yeah, I'll incorporate you. Next day they called me and said, sorry, I can't help you. They were getting called by government officials in Ohio to say, you help that guy, we'll make sure you never get any work. We couldn't get an attorney. To this day, I only have like 2 attorneys that I can even talk to. And they're in Washington. ACLJ is one of them. And Tom Fenton has helped us. This is a tactic they've been doing. Every American has a right to the law. It's great to attack these bar associations. They need to be disbanded. And then Ed Martin needs to go after the law schools. The law schools where, guess what? You can go to law school and never have a class on the Constitution. I'm not making this up. That's the enemies. These are the people destroying America from within. This is what China has spent 30 years paying for, and that's what they got under Joe Biden, and they almost destroyed our country, except that you and I defended it and gave us this next chance, and now Trump is fighting like crazy to defeat our enemies on the left, and it's a beautiful thing, folks, and you got to tell people about it. You got to explain to them it's a beautiful thing because they don't understand. And that's why you tell people about this podcast, right? Because they didn't hear about this fairness law from the Civil War. Man, who were the Trump people during the 4 years he was off? Project 2025, baby. Heritage. Russ Vought. Stephen Miller. Man, were they the Impoundment Act, right? All these things, the Alien Sedition Act. All these 100-year-old laws that they're using to wield against our enemies. Man, you got to take your hat off. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome to these guys. So I want to finish up with a couple more things because I just mentioned the Impoundment Act, right? This is a tell. You got to be aware of this. Trump administration violated impoundment law by freezing electric vehicle funding, GAO fines. What is this? Why is this important? Okay. As Trump and his top advisors argue that the decades-old law is unconstitutional, meaning the impoundment law, GOA notes the Constitution specifically vests Congress the power of the purse. Senator Pat Murray, Democrat of Washington, the top Democrat on the Appropriations Committee, said in a statement, the GOA's decision affirms that we've long known. The president is breaking the law to block funding Congress passed on a bipartisan basis and is owed to the American people simply because he disagrees with it. The department has said that pausing the Charger program, which they had billions of dollars for putting electric car chargers across the country. And remember, Pete Buttigieg only put in like 5 of them. Okay, 5 of them in 4 years. Affirms it was necessary as it rewrites rules for using the grant money, but the federal watchdog dismissed that argument. So the Trump administration said, we're not spending that because we're not doing the Green Deal scam anymore, new Green Deal scam, but they're saying, oh no, we voted for this, so you have to, right? You have to do this. If the Trump administration wishes to make changes to funding under the program, GAO wrote, the president needs to send Congress a so-called rescission request or propose new legislation to make changes to funding mandates already signed into law. The GAO has ruled the Trump Transportation Department erred in its interpretation that the funds were obligated on the program, a key factor. Okay? Now, I told you over the course of, since Trump's been sworn in, that this is an effort to restore the Constitution. That's what President Trump is trying to do. And there are things that the left has done to destroy the presidential power that protected us. One of them is the Impoundment Act. We believe it's unconstitutional, and that if we take this to the Supreme Court, we will win. And this will change everything because it will give the president the power to say, you just said we're going to spend $9 trillion and I'm going to stop spending things that we don't need. Okay? Critical. Listen to Russ Vought talk about impoundment, and they mentioned rescission in that, and the budget. Listen to what Russ Vought is saying to you here.
In terms of what's the substance of what the credit ratings have said over years is, look, there's been no success towards moving the structural debt and deficits from mandatory savings. We think we accomplished that. But to your point, your question, we believe that the tariffs are a part of this. The tariffs are happening right now. Yes. Everyone thinks so. The president's negotiating these bills. We are on a current glide path right now for $3 trillion over 10 years, notwithstanding how the reciprocal agreements end up. That's based on the things that are in place right now. That we are seeing record levels of tariffs, and they are coming in to the extent over 10 years of $3 trillion. We are going to send up rescissions bills. There's this meme out there that we're not sending rescissions bills up. We have a $9 billion package of DOGE cuts to foreign aid and Corporation for Public Broadcasting and NPR. It is almost ready to go up. Why is the delay? The delay is because the House actually wants to pass it, and we have been working with House appropriators, Tom Cole, Mario Diaz-Balart. For the first time in history, I've had conversations with the House appropriators. They want to pass it in the House and put pressure on the Senate. I don't want to send rescissions bills up there that go nowhere. And then, of course, we remain committed in keeping impoundment on the table. So if they don't move these cuts, we are still going to have our executive tools to, in fiscal year 25, to bend and cut and reduce woke and weaponized bureaucracy and make DOGE cuts permanent.
Okay, did you hear it? Right? There's a lot of confusion, and there's memes about they're not going to do rescission. It's about timing. It's about getting the train cars on the track in the right row. Okay? And he said right at the end, impoundment is our plan. We're going to push this to the max. We're going to force this issue because you can't have any organization that just spends money on things that destroy the organization. And that was the $93 billion that we just showed you that the Bidens tried to do, the Biden administration tried to do, right? We're doing the right things. We're doing big things, huge things, life-changing things, things that are going to affect your and my individual liberty and prosperity. Freedom, liberty, and prosperity. That's why you're watching this podcast. That's why you got to tell people about these stories so they understand what's at stake. And so I'm going to finish up this first half of the show with an energy story that I think is huge and has personal connection to me. First thing, Pennsylvania judge trashes prosecutors' climate change lawsuit targeting oil companies. You and I know that there has been lawfare since probably 20 years of lawfare against fossil fuel companies by the Marxist left, by communist China. If you're new to this podcast, just understand this. There is no such thing as a climate emergency. There's weather, okay? And what mankind is doing is not a threat at all to the planet. What this is, what the whole climate hoax was a communist plan to destroy capitalism. Because why? Capitalism depends on cheap and abundant energy. And so if they could kill coal and gas and nuclear, right? And oil, what would they have? Control of us. They destroy our economy. They just had a study in Britain that says net zero will destroy your country. It can't be done. Yeah, for 20 years, we spent trillions of dollars following this psyop, from the commies. So if you're new to this thing, go look on our website, search on climate, look in the video section. We've got some excellent videos that explain this to you. Okay? So what is this judge in Pennsylvania doing? He's calling it out. A Pennsylvania judge tossed a lawsuit that prosecutors in Philadelphia area county brought against 6 of the nation's largest oil companies. The judge noted that his opinion adds to a growing chorus of federal and state courts ruling that such cases aren't meant to be brought at the local level, while expressing concerns about the county's handling of the targeted lawsuits. In a scathing rebuke of the lawsuit filed in Bucks County, PA in March of 2024, last year, Judge Stephen Corr of the Pennsylvania Court of Common Pleas dismissed the case with prejudice late on Friday and wrote that emissions caused by petroleum are regulated at the federal level, not the state level. Corr also expressed concerns about how Bucks County hired outside counsel and filed its complaint with minimal public feedback. That outside counsel were radical leftist, Chinese-funded, anti-capitalist climate nuts. The judge noted that in the oral argument, the county's attorney conceded that the advertising, production, transport, and sale of defendants' fossil fuel products in Bucks County did not cause any harm to the county. Their own person said that, and still they're filing these suits. The dismissal is a significant blow to a broad nationwide effort that targets, it's not nationwide, it's global effort that targets oil companies in state courts and seeks court injunctions forcing them to pay hundreds of millions or billions in Bucks County's case of dollars in environmental damages that can't be proven. After they filed their initial complaint in the case, Bucks County officials said they sought to shift the financial burden of the climate crisis from the taxpayers of Bucks County to the companies responsible for creating the crisis. The defendants in the case were BP, Chevron, ConocoPhillips, Phillips 66, ExxonMobil, Shell, and the American Petroleum Institute. Judge Corr also noted that he is one of several judges to have come to such a conclusion in recent months. Today, we join a growing chorus of state and federal courts across the United States singing from the same hymnal and concluding that the claims raised by Bucks County are not justiciable by any state court in Pennsylvania. We conclude that our federal structure does not allow Pennsylvania or any state law to address the claims raised in the Bucks County complaint. Judges in New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, and New York have recently ruled against state and local prosecutors in similar cases brought against oil companies. This should be investigated by the Trump DOJ as a RICO. This is lawfare intended to cripple an industry for political reasons. This is a concerted effort, a RICO, a crime that was planned and shared and implemented. I would call for RICO against this. But now, here's the kicker, man. Donald Trump. Holy cow. Donald Trump. New Hampshire likely winner as New York's Hochul cuts deal with Trump on natural gas pipelines. Natural gas pipelines. What is this about? Folks, this is huge news. And it's just a 9-hour drive from the natural gas-rich Marcellus Shale of western Pennsylvania to downtown Manchester, New Hampshire. Yet during the coldest months of winter, many New Englanders kept warm using natural gas shipped in from Trinidad and Tobago, just off the coast of Venezuela, 2,300 miles away. LNG tankers don't have to cross the state lines of Massachusetts or New York. Blue state governors like Maura Haley, Massachusetts, and Kathy Hochul, New York, have bragged about stopping pipelines from carrying domestic natural gas to New England's customers. Remember, she said, I stopped 2 gas pipelines from coming into the state in an October 2022 statement when she was the state attorney general. But the blockade of Pennsylvania natural gas to energy-starved New England may have been broken. On Monday, the Trump administration's withdrawal of a stop work order holding up a $5 billion wind power project off the coast of Long Island. What does that have to do with gas pipelines? According to the Washington Free Beacon, it's part of a deal with Hochul's government that will allow the development of 2 natural gas pipelines interstate. One is the Northeast Supply Enhancement Project, which will bring natural gas to New York City. The other is the Constitution Pipeline, which will send natural gas from the Marcellus Shale to the Northeast. New York's refusal to issue a permit eventually led the Constitution's pipeline developer, the Williams Company, to abandon the project in 2020. It's been 5 years, right? That project has been raised by the administration as an example of a kind of lunacy of not building critical infrastructure that has incredible merit. Chad Zarman, an executive vice president at Williams, told the Washington Post, "We are using it as an opportunity to highlight the fact that for the last 10 years, we really haven't built infrastructure in the new Northeast, and it has cost the people there." Natural gas is absolutely vital to New Hampshire, where it already generates 25% of the state's electricity. It is also cleaner, lower carbon alternative to the heating oil used by more than 40% of Granite Staters to heat their homes. They're using a bigger pollutant because of the lunacy of the left. Hochul has not publicly admitted that she entered a deal with the Trump administration. Instead, she simply said she reaffirmed that New York will work with the administration and private entities on new energy projects that meet the legal requirements. But Interior Secretary Doug Burgum is already praising Hochul's new stance. I'm encouraged by Governor Hochul's comments about her willingness to move forward on a critical pipeline capacity. Americans who live in New York and New England will see significant economic benefits and lower utility costs from increased access to reliable, affordable, clean American natural gas. Folks, this is going to cut heating costs in New England by like 30%. And they think they can build this pipeline in 9 months. And I saw a map of it where it's just a beautiful thing. It's a 30-inch pipe that will go from Marcellus Shale production areas right into New England. Only Trump could get this done. So why is this personal to me? Because when the Tea Party started back in 2009 and 2010, it wasn't just about taxed enough already and Obamacare. It was about things like fracking and energy. Ohio has vast resources of natural gas that could be fracked. When that started, you may remember the videos about natural gas fracking. They would light your faucet water on fire and say it was dangerous and it was making people ill. And that all came out of Cornell University in New York. And New York State was the first to say, we're going to ban fracking. We knew this was an existential threat to Ohio, which was really in the dumps back then with our economy. We needed oil and gas business, jobs. So guess what? Tom Zawistowski, yours truly, and the Portage County Tea Party, many of you I know are watching this, will remember, we went to war. We went to fight for fracking. And there was a movie that came out called Frack Nation, which this nonprofit group put out. We in the Portage County Tea Party got the other Tea Party groups in the state to show this video, which no one would show, that showed that it was a hoax, that the frack claims were a hoax. And then we fought with the legislature. And I remember meeting at a Cracker Barrel in Portage County in like 2010 with two energy executives. And I said, I want to meet with you to see what we can do with helping fracking. They thought I was lying. They expected me to shake them down like all the lefties to say, we want you to give us money or we're going to shut you down. And instead I said, no, we're going to help you. And so Ohio and Pennsylvania fracked and our nation became energy interdependent because of what we did in the Tea Party. And they kept fighting us in New York to their detriment, to the detriment of their voters. And now Donald Trump has broken through. Wow. Wow. It's going to change New England. And guess what it's going to do? People are already talking about New York might go red. They're talking about New Jersey and even some states up in New Hampshire and stuff. I'm telling you, man, when people start paying less for their natural gas to heat their houses, they're going to think about who they vote for. This is huge. And I wanted to bring it to your attention. I bet you none of you know that. Share that story, okay? Share that story. All right. Went a little long that first half. We're going to take a little break now. All right. I want to remind you that you're listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski, and we'll be back after these short messages. The We the People Convention News and Opinion radio program is paid for by donors like you. You can donate to the We the People Convention and support our cause by going to wethepeopleconvention.org or by sending your check in any amount to We the People Convention, P.O. Box 6211, Akron, Ohio 44312. When you're playing a video, including our podcast, you'll see this little cloud button. And if you click it, it'll actually download the video to your hard disk. And this works on our podcast page as well. If you're playing our podcast, and it's going to be loud, so I won't play it for much, but there's our podcast playing, and you can see this little, download button. Okay. The other thing you got to notice on our podcast page is that there's a link here where you can send me a message about this podcast. Hey, it was great. Hey, I didn't like it. What, something was wrong, or here's a correction, that kind of thing. You can use that link. And then these are the stories that I covered in this particular podcast. And you'll see there's links that go to the stories, to the articles that I used in reporting on that. So you can click on that. You'll also see that you can sign up for our emails and text messages, but you can also watch our podcast on Roku TV and on Amazon Fire TV. And these are the instructions for doing that. So this is all on our podcast page, right on the front page where the yellow button was. So if you click there, this is our podcast page. These are the instructions for watching on Roku TV or Amazon Fire. And I watch our podcast on TV. It just feels more comfortable. So you can do that. We're also on Rumble. If you go to Rumble, you should join Rumble. And it's Tom Z at WTPC. You'll see our podcast there. So you can get us a lot of different ways, including on Apple iTunes. And then this is an audio version of our podcast. If you click here, it'll just play the audio of the podcast. It will not, show you the video. So people can, listen to that while they're jogging or, working out, working in the yard, or just relaxing and just want to listen to the audio and not watch the video. And again, this is available on phone, on your iPad, on your laptop, on your computer, any way you want. And you can share this whatever you see. If you're on a page that you really like, and you see an article that you think, geez, I've got to share this article, with someone in my family. You can send them an email by clicking on the little envelope. You can post it on Parler or MeWe. If you click on this, you get all kinds of options, where you can put it on Twitter or Facebook, whatever, which we don't support, but you can do whatever you want. So we ask that you share what you see on our We the People Convention site, and that you get more people to look at it, because that's the whole idea here, to help educate people, inform them. And then, as I said before, Link, we're not just about talk, we're about action. And in my podcast every week, which is published every Saturday, so if the new podcast usually comes out every Saturday, and in that podcast, I will ask you to do certain things that will help protect and defend your individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So that's the We the People Convention website. Come back often, use it to be informed, and share it with others. Thanks a lot. All right, welcome back. Man, I'm stoked about the first half of the show. That Fair Act, okay, that they're going to enforce on the DEI. Oh my gosh, that's brilliant. You got to share that with people. And then, the story about Trump getting the oil, the natural gas to New England. Oh my gosh. So much good news in the first half. And again, we don't just talk about it. I'm not just sharing this with you. I'm sharing it with you so that you can share it with others. It's about taking action, right? It's about, letting other people understand the great things that are going on and explaining why things maybe aren't the way they should be. Now, that video, I've got to get the time to redo that video because it's getting pretty old. We are on Facebook. We are on YouTube. Okay, on Facebook, we have a We the People Convention page. You can go there and like it if Facebook's your thing. I'm still a little shaky on Facebook because I don't trust Zuckerberg, and so I haven't been promoting anything yet or doing anything, but the page is there, so I do post several times a week. We are on X. It says we're not on, Twitter, and Twitter's now called X. We're on X. Follow me on X. Tom Z WTPC. Go to x.com, give me your email, set up an account, search on Tom Z WTPC, and then follow us because I'm posting there several times a day because things are happening so fast. We are now back on YouTube. So we're on Rumble, we're on Roku TV, we're on Amazon Fire TV, we're on our podcast webpage, and now we're on YouTube again. We'll see. So far, they haven't thrown out anything. They haven't said, your video violates our rules. So we'll see how that goes. I'm being a little more careful about our videos because that seems to be an issue. Okay. But anyway, share those things as well. But, it's about action. We're not just about talk. We're about defending our individual freedom, liberty, and prosperity. So you got to let these things be known to other people so that we can affect change. Like I said, President Trump, I want him to ask us to do more. And I talked about reporting illegals, but this, reporting these, violations of DEI and stuff, I'm going to get a web page or something, and I'm going to show you that so you can start reporting. We need to participate in making America great. And I just don't think they're asking enough. And me just saying, call your congressman, call your congressman, call your congressman, it starts to get old. So we're going to try to find more things we can actually do. Okay. We'll start the second half of the show. I usually do some more international stuff. This assassination of these two Jewish young people in D.C. was just heartbreaking. Israeli embassy staffers assassinated just blocks from U.S. Capitol in Free Palestine attack. This is just horrible. And you can see what the left is doing. I heard Alan Dershowitz on last night was on Fox, and he talked about they're now telling him he has to get personal security because the DOJ and the FBI and people are afraid that they're going to start killing high-profile Jews. We can't allow this. And Dershowitz said, I warned that these protests on campus, if they're not stopped, which Trump is now doing, that's the whole Harvard thing is about. That's the whole Columbia thing is about. Dershowitz is saying, if you don't stop this stuff on the campuses, it's going to come into your community. And he's worried about Antifa type stuff this summer. In 2019, Trump didn't stop it. He's going to stop it, okay? Law and order must be maintained. They're going to try to use force to overthrow our government. We have to use force to stop them, okay? So let me continue with the story. Two Israeli embassy staff members are reported to have been fatally shot Wednesday evening outside the Capitol Jewish Museum in Washington, D.C. A 30-year-old man has been arrested in connection with the barbaric murder of an Israeli couple. His name is Eliza Rodriguez, believed to be from Chicago. He's accused of killing Yaron Leshinsky, 28, and Sarah Milgram, 26, who both worked at the Israeli embassy. Authorities said Rodriguez shouted, free Palestine, as he was apprehended. Social media posts linked to him revealed extremist sentiment supporting Hamas and advocating for violence. One post on X stated, don't blame me, I voted for Hamas, while another called for escalating violence in support of Hamas. This is it. How do you move your cause forward by needlessly assassinating innocent people in the streets of Washington, D.C.? You think that mobilizes me, Tom Zalestowski, or you, the viewers of this podcast, to say, yes, we hate Israel. No, we hate Hamas. We hate you because you're violent. We hate you because you're extreme. Authorities say shot free Palestine is apprehended. Rodriguez allegedly online activities also included posts referencing a truck bomb attack on the New York Times headquarters, as well as messages featuring anti-American rhetoric and symbols associated with the Marxist leftist group Popular Front. Okay? He also, folks, get this. This is heinous. He went back. He shot them. The young girl was still alive. He went back in the lobby and shot her multiple times again as she tried to crawl to safety. Okay? So Judge Jeanine Pirro, who's now the DA, acting DA in DC, and this case is under her purview, came out and said the death penalty is on the table. I want the death penalty. Again, not 5 years from now. This guy is on videotape. He admitted he did it. They've got a manifesto. There's witnesses. He killed them in cold blood. He needs to die. Okay? This is just got to end. And that message, you need to send that message. You need to say, this guy needs to die to people you talk to. Why? So the idiots who think, oh, this is great, I can be a hero and a martyr too, they don't want to die, right? They don't really want to die. You need to make clear they should die and that they're pressing those charges. That's how you stop this stuff. On better news, Trump, this got forgotten because it happened on Monday. Geez, Monday is like 2 years ago, right? But Trump and Putin talked for 2 hours on Monday, and the peace negotiations seem to be moving in the right direction. It's in a remarkable development that could signal a turning point in the war in Eastern Europe. President Donald Trump revealed Monday that he held a 2-hour phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin, and what came out of it could reshape the future of the region. He said, quote, I just completed my 2-hour call with President Vladimir Putin. I believe it went very well. According to Trump, the call wasn't just diplomatic pleasantries. It led to a major breakthrough. Russia and Ukraine will immediately start negotiations towards a ceasefire and, more importantly, an end of the war. The groundwork has been laid for direct talks between Moscow and Kiev, with Trump emphasizing that the two nations will handle the negotiations themselves. The conditions will be negotiated between the two parties, as it can only be as they are the ones who know the details and nobody else would be aware of. Okay? Great news. Great news. And again, just to confirm it, Putin came back and said, yeah, we had a call and it was productive. He made this statement. First and foremost, I thank the U.S. president for the support of the U.S. in resuming direct negotiations between Russia and Ukraine on the possible conclusion of a peace agreement, as well as for the resumption of talks that, as well known, were broken off by the Ukrainian side in 2022. I would like to emphasize that the talk with President Trump was very substantive and quite candid discussion, and overall, in my view, was very useful in this regard. We agree with the U.S. President that Russia will propose and is ready to work with Ukraine's side on a memorandum concerning a possible future peace treaty. This would outline several provisions, including a framework for resolution, the timeline for potentially concluding a peace agreement, and other relevant details, such as the possibility of a temporary ceasefire if corresponding agreements are reached. So, okay. So in the middle of the big, beautiful deal and the Golden Dome and, and getting pipelines to New York, Donald Trump is also working on peace with Russia. Okay, that's serious stuff. But the threat is China. This is what all the tariffs are about, right? I talked to you about that when the UK signed the deal with Trump on the tariffs. I said China is the target, and then China came to the table and said, "Oh, we want to discuss things," but we said you got to trust but verify. Why? China is at war with us. They are waging war. For years, they bought off the Bidens, they bought off Cory Booker, they bought off Kamala Harris, they bought off Mitch McConnell, they bought off all these politicians so they would let them wage war on us without us defending themselves. Now, Trump is defending us, and he's waging war on China. But man, we're this close. It could be too late, okay? Listen to this story. This is just came out this week, and it's concerning. China has an off switch for America, and we aren't ready to deal with it. An off switch? What does that mean? Imagine waking up tomorrow and your phone has no signal. Your smart home isn't working. Your Ring camera is offline. You get in your car, but the GPS won't route. Worse, every traffic light in town is out. Intersections are a mess. Sirens echo in the distance. You drive to an ATM and it won't work. Your water supply is damaged. You've got no gas. You can't pump gas at the gas station. This scenario is digital darkness caused by China's off switch for America. It is the penultimate step in China's strategy to defeat America before gunning for global control. They want to rule the world. That's just a fact, okay? So-called Assassin's Mace plays a central role in China's plan to become the world's sole superpower by 2049. And there's a link in this story to that plan, which you'll be able to get on our podcast page, and you can read their plan to rule the world by 2049. The many known Assassin's Mace for demand immediate action. The first thing is tactical electromagnetic pulse weapons, EMP. That's the thing where they detonate a nuclear bomb and it takes out our power grid. China developed tactical EMP weapons that can disable entire regions by targeting civilian infrastructure America relies on to function. These compact pulse generators can hover above unprotected data centers, destroying electronics inside with pinpoint electromagnetic blasts. They're developing this. What's our defense for it? Deep sea fiber cuts. I've reported on this to you about the deep sea cuts in Norway and Finland. China developed, over 95% of the global internet traffic travels through undersea fiber cables. China recently unveiled deep sea cable cutters capable of severing cables at extreme depths. Recent disruptions near Taiwan and the Baltic Sea suggest these tools are already in use. They're already doing it. They're practicing it. If there's war with Taiwan, they're going to cut all the cables so Taiwan has no internet. That affects your defense capabilities, folks, right? Anti-satellite weapons. As America stockpiles low Earth orbit satellites, China expands its anti-satellite arsenal to include missiles, parasitic satellite, and lasers designed to disable or destroy orbital assets. That's why Trump is doing the Golden Dome, right? But we don't have it. We should have had it his first term. We're late. Cyber attacks. China's cyber weapons are the most deeply embedded Assassin's Mace. Just this week, U.S. investigators uncovered rogue communications devices hidden in Chinese-made solar inverters and batteries. Such undocumented components can bypass firewalls, allowing China to remotely monitor, destabilize, and disable critical infrastructure. I reported several years ago that they found that the cranes at all of U.S. ports in the United States, in San Diego and stuff like that, had these electronic devices on them that the Chinese installed in these cranes that allow them to control our ports. This has been going on for a long time. We've done nothing. And so this is what Trump is facing, and we've got to address these issues, and that's why in the budget, there's like $143 billion increase in our defense budget. Now, I still think our defense budget is completely out of whack because we're buying weapons that we don't need, that are overpriced, and we're subsidizing, the military defense conflict. And we gotta solve that, but we also gotta survive. And so that's why the budget is what the budget is. And that's why we're not gonna get where we wanna go in 90 days, right? Or even 4 years. But at least we're making ourselves aware of the fight and we're fighting it. I wanted to share that with you. When I say we're in serious danger, I mean it. The world is a dangerous place, and Donald Trump was left a total piece of garbage as far as our government is concerned, as far as our economy. As far as there's wars in, Israel, Hamas wars, we got Iran there, we got Pakistan and India, we got Russia and Ukraine, and China threatening Taiwan. Holy cow. Yeah, Donald Trump's the greatest president ever, and God has anointed him. But wow, don't you ever forget the size of the task he faces, how difficult this is going to be, and how we got to thread the needle. We got to win AI. We've got to develop, the Anduril plant in Columbus has to start making drones that can be scaled up to fight these wars if they have to be fought. Man, we're hanging by a thread, even though things are great. And there's a lot to be happy about this Memorial Day weekend. But we're hanging by a thread, literally. So this is the next thing. Trump shut the border. The southern border, and now we're going to actually build the freaking wall. Because remember, it was the Republicans under Paul Ryan who denied Trump the money to build the wall that enabled Biden to flood us with 12 million. Republicans did that. Never forget that. Okay? But now that it's tough on the southern border, we find that migrants are targeting the northern states, as Trump's southern border becomes impenetrable. And what's happened is illegals are crossing into Maine and surged to their highest point in 24 years last month, with the U.S. Border Patrol reporting 113 arrests in April. That figure marks a significant increase from the 25 to 50 monthly encounters typically during a Biden's time and like 10 when Trump was president before. The rise in crossings comes as migrants from at least 16 countries, including Ecuador, Guatemala, and Mexico, increasingly opt to enter the U.S. via Canada. Okay, avoiding the southern border, which President Donald Trump is heavily protecting. So just know that this hasn't stopped. The fight continues, and Trump continues to fight it. And that's what we've got to do. And this is kind of tangential to the whole, illegals, coming in and all that kind of stuff. Let's see here. This is, remember, they want to bring in, why do they want to bring in 12 million illegals? They want them to vote. They wanted to change our electoral map. Why did they put them on planes and fly them into red states? To change the electoral map. And that's what we got to fight. So this was a big story this week, exclusive. Trump admin rolls out new tool to stop non-citizens from hijacking U.S. elections. Okay? The Trump administration is unrolling new initiative Thursday that will help prevent non-citizens from voting. The U.S. Citizens and Immigration Service is updating the Systematic Alien Verification and Entitlement Program, SAVE, Systematic Alien Verification Entitlement Program, and partnering with the Social Security Administration in order to ensure a single, reliable source for verifying immigration status and U.S. citizenship, according to a memo exclusively shared with the Daily Caller News Foundation. So what is this? From all last year, we were fighting, and Frank LaRose deserves credit. He's the Secretary of State here in Ohio. He was suing the Biden administration, saying the law says illegal immigrants, non-citizens, can't vote in our federal elections. We need access to the Social Security Administration database and the Homeland Security database, which says, Social Security says, you were born an American citizen, here's your Social Security number. The Homeland Security database says you become an American citizen by, going through the courses and it's being sworn in. We need to see those so we can clean our voter rolls. The Biden administration wouldn't let them in. Never would they let them do it. Why? Because there's thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of illegals on the voter rolls. Now the Trump administration is trying to make this so there's an API, an application interface for every Secretary of State to bang their voter rolls against this one SAVE Act database, which combines HHS and Social Security. This is a good thing. However, I reached out to Frank LaRose as soon as I saw this story, and I said, this is good news. And he said, yeah, well, they're not quite there yet because the databases are such a freaking mess that you don't want people accessing it until it's fixed. So hopefully the Doge guys are working on this, but this is a big deal, okay? Because we're trying to stop the cheating. We're trying to stop the cheating, okay? Now, I'm going to bring this story to you because I always wondered this, and it brings perspective. Only 8 Republicans mayors are left in the United States. Out of 100 top 100 cities, only 8 have Republican mayors. Why? What's going on? In April, there were 9 Republican mayors in America's 50 biggest cities. In May, that number fell to 8. Democrats are celebrating Omaha, Nebraska's mayoral election win as proof, don't you know, that Republicans are out of step with America, when it's really evidence how the nation's cities have fallen out of step with America. There was a time when American cities were symbols of progress, but they have long since become sinkholes of decline, clinging to a handful of industries that employ a tiny fraction of their population as evidence of their relevance. Just go drive through any city. It's evident. You can see it. It's terrible. When Americans think of big cities, they think of tall buildings and social problems. The Democratic Party's stranglehold on major cities isn't evidence of hope, but of despair. It's not a triumph for democracy, but a sign that democracy no longer operates in major cities where elections are determined by networks of taxpayer-funded community groups, unions, and other organizations that act as voter turnout operations for the Democrats in exchange for what? Power and money, right? Take the Omaha election. Now get this. They're talking about democracy. I'm going to explain this to you. Take the Ohio election, which Democrats and media are still triumphantly celebrating as a major victory for their side. John Ewing, the Democratic incumbent, beat incumbent Mayor Gene Strouhart by 53,322 votes to 40,420 out of a population of 500,000. They had 20% turnout. What was the rest of Omaha, Nebraska doing? Nothing, not voting. And that's the majority by 4 times. There's 500,000 people there, and a total of 93,000 voted. But Buttigieg, the built by Mayor Pete's brand on winning 80% of the vote in South Bend. But the 80%, they'll get this, Pete Buttigieg in South Bend, 80% of the vote was 8,515 votes in a city of 100,000. Democrats have taken control of the election system in major cities, but just because the media builds cults of personality around them doesn't mean they're winning the hearts and minds of people. He had 10% of the vote in South Bend elected this mentally ill, gender dysphoric Pete Buttigieg. Why are so few people turning out to vote? It's not just Republicans boycotting a rigged process, but an apolitical majority that believes the system is crooked and sees no reason to take part in it. Republican mayors may be disappearing from major cities, but voters are disappearing even faster. In 2023, only 35% of Chicago's voters turned out for the final round of the mayoral election. In a city of 2.6 million, around 600,000 voted. And considering Chicago's history of undead electioneering, who is to say how many of the 600,000 were actually alive? But then, when their living don't vote, it falls to the dead to take their place. This is a tragedy, folks. And again, I blame Republicans. I've seen it. I've begged Republicans. I've said we can compete in these cities. And particularly now with Donald Trump as president and the black vote swinging and the Hispanic vote swinging. And now, what's the biggest story? The biggest story from Charlie Kirk and all the polls are young people, 20 to 35, moving towards the conservative side, right? Why aren't we running and working in these big cities? You know why? I think there's a racial component to it. I know there is in Ohio. I've begged them. I've called them out. I've said, you won't go fight in Akron or Youngstown or Toledo or Dayton because you're racist. Oh, no. We just can't win there. Can't win there? They're leaving 80% of the vote on the table? You can't come with a message that says we're going to hire more cops and clean up your city and win? It's a disgrace. And you should challenge the Republicans in your state and say, why aren't you fighting for these people's votes? They're there. A lot of them voted for Trump. Yeah. Why aren't they doing that? It's a good question, isn't it? It's a good question. This was really good news. I trumpeted it. You need to, share it with people. I put the video up and the story. MAHA team releases historic report on American health and plans for changes. This was a landmark historic study that said, what is the health status of America? And if you go to the website at wethepeopleconvention.org, you can click on the report. It's a 68-page report. You should read it. The report explicitly targets big pharma, big food, and the federal medical bureaucracy for colluding in a system that drugged, poisoned, and stressed children into chronic illness. It calls for sweeping reforms, including food system overhaul, chemical exposure limits, and a rollback of overprescription and vaccine excess. Okay? The top recommendations are ending federal subsidies for ultra-processed foods, conducting comprehensive chemical audits, launching large-scale nutrition and lifestyle trials, and restoring open scientific inquiry, particularly around vaccines, pharmaceutical safety, and vaccine injury compensation systems. So share that article. This is big news. This is how you make America great again, okay? And this is counter now. I'm going to say, so here's this story you're going to share with people about what RFK Jr. and Bhattacharya and Dr. Oz and all of them are doing to help make America healthy again. Against what? Against this. This stories came out. Biden officials knew about the potential COVID-19 vaccine risks and took steps to downplay them, scathing Senate report. Top federal health officials actively took steps to delay warning the public for months in 2021 about the potential risk of heart-related complications from receiving mRNA COVID-19 vaccines, a scathing report from Senator Ron Johnson's office alleges. Starting on February 2021, federal agencies had been alerted to large reports of myocarditis in young people who received the Pfizer's vaccine, but waited until late June that year to adjust the vaccine labels to make that side effect known. Okay? They covered it up. Even though CDC and FDA officials were well aware of the risks of myocarditis following the COVID-19 vaccines, the Biden administration opted to withhold issuing a formal warning to the public for months about the safety concerns jeopardizing the health of young Americans, the 54-page interim report says. During the time it took health officials to adjust the labels, doctors who warned about the potential risks of myocarditis among those who took the vaccine were subject to what? Censorship, suppression, and accusations of peddling misinformation. The Biden administration, literally, the DOJ and FBI, put them on terrorist watch lists for telling the truth that taking the vax could give you a heart attack. Yeah, that's the difference between RFK Jr. and these freaking criminals. Dr. Tracy Beth Hogue, who consulted Florida's Department of Health as an epidemiologist at the time, had one of her tweets labeled misleading for making an observation about the risk of myocarditis. Tasking non-experts to adjudicate tweets on complex topics like myocarditis and mass efficiency data was destined for a significant error rate, independent journalist David Zwig, who helped to report on the Twitter files, later reflected. Even after health officials adjusted the labels, individuals who raised concerns about myocarditis were targeted and were stopped. We're stopped from telling you you could die from this. Okay? How's that health care? How's that with the job of your healthcare professionals, right? They hid it. And then this story just came out. Jim Jordan, a Pfizer COVID investigation may finally be in the cards. The House Judiciary Committee is investigating claims that Pfizer executives delayed the COVID-19 vaccine trial results to influence the 2020 election. They were doing this for political reasons. Just like listen, history is going to show when it's all said and done. The Chinese release of COVID was a bioweapon to make sure that Donald Trump lost the 2020 election. And Fauci and Biden and all of them participated in this. Obama, they're all guilty as sin. Okay? That's what happened. And this is the proof. Here it goes. More proof. The House Judiciary Committee has launched investigation allegations that Pfizer executives deliberately slowed the COVID-19 vaccine clinical trials to influence the outcome of the 2020 presidential election. The claims center on comments made by Philip Dormitzer, Pfizer's former head of vaccine research and development. According to Dormitzer, Pfizer's top research executives intentionally delayed the completion of clinical testing, ensuring results would not be available before the election. Dormitzer reportedly told colleagues at his subsequent employer, GlaxoSmithKline, that the timing of the vaccine release was not a coincidence. Glasgow later passed the information on to federal prosecutors in New York. The Judiciary Committee, chaired by Representative Jim Jordan, had demanded that Dormitzer provide all relevant documents related to Pfizer's vaccine trials from March 1st of 2020 to present. Dormitzer has also been asked to schedule a transcribed interview with the committee by May 29th. Dormitzer requested a transfer to Canada after Trump's 2024 election, citing fears of being investigated. This man is a criminal. Pfizer is a criminal company. They should literally be shut down. They should be shut down. Their CEO, all their top executives should be arrested. They killed people for profit, and they overthrew the sitting president. They overthrew a presidential election and the sitting president. Remember, Trump was president. They did this to overthrow and do election interference. There's the proof. It's right there. You can share that. Positive trial results disclosed earlier could have potentially politically benefited President Donald Trump, then serving as first Trump. a term Trump had previously accused Pfizer and the U.S. Food and Drug Administration of withholding vaccines success to hinder the 2020 election campaign. See, because they didn't want Trump to get any credit for fighting COVID. Oh, you got to get rid of him. Biden's going to come in and take care of it. Yeah, it's a lie. They lied to you. You need to point out the lie. Okay? So then, this is all you need to see. All right, we started with Maha. We're going to fix this stuff. Jay Bhattacharya spoke to NIH employees by telling them the truth. Now, he spoke. He's the head of the NIH now. He went after the press conference about how they're going to fix things, and he spoke to the people there. You know what they did? They walked out on him. Every institution gets corrupted to some degree over time. As with the Fed, managers and executives even best institutions have a dual mandate: ensure that the ostensible purpose of the organization is pursued and ensure that the institution survives. Again, every nonprofit agency that says I'm against I'm for abortion, they can't have abortion outlawed or they're out of business, right? So they want to keep the problem going so they can keep being funded, all right? And in federal government, that's what always happens. On top of that, everybody in the institution wants to further their own interests, which often diverge from two explicit mandates above. Corruption is inevitable because these three imperatives clash, and the later two always win out in the long run. Even in business, where the profit motive, which supposedly aligns all three of them, falls prey to the same problem. That's why big businesses so often need to be restructured. Bureaucratic inertia and competing divisions pursuing their own interests undermines efficiency. That's how you get DEI, ESG, and plain old inefficiency. Government and NGOs almost never get restructured. So you get scenes like this, okay? Dr. Jay Bhattacharya was hired to reform a badly broken National Institute of Health. That the institution is badly broken is denied by almost nobody. It has departed so far from its mission that it likely funded the creation of the COVID vaccine. Even if you doubt that it's funded the gain of function research, you must admit that at least plausibly that it did, and it participated in a self-conscious cover-up to hide the facts. So in other words, what he's saying is the National Institute of Health under Anthony Fauci not only funded the creation of the COVID virus, they also funded the vaccine to fix it so they all could make millions. Okay? Total corruption. Jay Bhattacharya, speaking to his employees, told them the truth. He didn't insert the unprovable, he merely stated the obvious. Gain of function research is dangerous, and the American people want it stopped. And his employees freaked out and stormed out, and their colleagues applauded them for doing so. His employees, he's in an auditorium. You can see the video on our X account, Tom ZWTBC. He says, we funded gain of function research and it needs to stop. People got up and walked out. They want to continue to fund these viruses. They should be charged. They're criminals, but they should at least be fired. Dr. Francis Collins, when he was DH director, commissioned a devastating takedown of the Great Barrington Declaration, and he later admitted that the argument put forth by Dr. Bhattacharya and others was reasonable, but politically inconvenient. He did this because the recommendations were ones he and Fauci rejected, not because they were obviously wrong or outside public health norms. In other words, the very institution charged with promoting public health suppressed scientific discussion for its own institutional reasons, not the public good. And that isn't even in dispute these days. NIH employees walked out. Jay Bhattacharya's got a hell of a tough job. Clean it out. Destroy every one of their professional reputations. None of these people should ever work in medicine again. In any way. They shouldn't be able to clean bedpans at a hospital. I mean it. When you kill people for money, if you kill people for your ideology, you're evil. We must defeat evil, as our Winston Churchill quote says at the end of each podcast, which maybe I'll read today. Okay? So then Trump continued, on his warpath of just, no rest. He won't rest because he understands how serious the fight is, how we must destroy the left. So now Bruce Springsteen goes off, talking down the United States and Trump overseas, and Trump went answering on Truth Social, okay? And he says Trump calls for a major investigation into Kamala over unlawful celebrity endorsements. Well, what is this about? President Trump on Monday called for a major investigation into former Vice President Kamala Harris over accusations that she paid for endorsements of celebrities like Bruce Springsteen and Beyonce and Oprah during her failed presidential campaign. How much did Kamala Harris pay Bruce Springsteen for his poor performance during her campaign for president? He asked on Truth Social. Why did he accept that money if he is such a fan of hers? Isn't that a major illegal campaign contribution? What about Beyonce? How much went to Oprah and Bono? I'm calling for a major investigation. Candidates aren't allowed to pay endorsements, which is what Kamala did under the guise of paying for entertainment. Okay? They paid, I mean, it's unbelievable. They paid Beyonce's production company $165,000. They paid Oprah's production company $1 million. They paid, let's see here. They paid Bruce Springsteen's people like $50,000. It's illegal. It's an illegal campaign thing. Well, where was the FEC on that? How about the Federal Elections Commission should have investigated it? We know why they didn't? Because they're a political hack group also. So now Trump's got people in charge of FEC. The DOJ and the FBI, yes, Kamala Harris and the people who ran her campaign need to be indicted and charged with these election crimes, just like the Act Blue money that's going on, that investigation, right? Why? Just like they tried to destroy Trump, except they tried to destroy, I told you this last week. When you hear me and you people are new listening to this podcast and you're saying, well, Tom Z is pushing Trump to go after his political enemies for vengeance. And I told you last week, and I'll tell you every week, this ain't vengeance. What they did to Trump and what they did to John Eastman and Navarro and Bannon and Flynn and all these other patriots, that wasn't law. That was made up. That was revenge. That was lawfare. It was illegal what they did. And hopefully they're going to get held accountable for that. This isn't revenge. You broke the freaking law and quote unquote, no one's above the law. This ain't for revenge. Don't you let anyone accuse you of saying, well, they're going after Letitia James for revenge. Did she sign the documents illegally to buy the house or didn't she? That's the case that's in front of court. Okay? When they go against these people, it's based on the rule of law. We're fighting to restore the rule of law. Don't let anybody tell you that they're going after Kamala. And Joe Biden needs to be charged. And his whole family needs to be charged. And the whole Otto Penn, all of that needs to be thrown out. Not for revenge. They broke the law to the max. Don't fall for their tactic of always accusing you of what they're actually doing. Okay? Okay. A few more stories. I know this has been a long podcast. I just got to go through a couple of these things. I'm going to post this story on our website. Black fatigue goes viral as everyone, including blacks, is tired of ghetto behavior. Okay? And what this is about is this story is really good that people, including blacks, are tired of this indoctrination they've done to the black community that basically is destroying the black community. What's the proof of that? For example, black Americans make up only 13% of the population, but commit 52% of all homicides. Black Americans have the highest rate of single-parent households. 50% of black homes compared to 20% of white homes, okay? And this article talks about that this idea that, you're a victim and that blacks should just obstruct anybody that tries to help them. That white people, this idea that white people are trying to hurt them and stop them. Leftist claims white people should should just be abused by blacks because historically they deserve it. They ignore the fact that every culture on earth had institutional slavery and all the slaves sent to the Americas were purchased from African tribes and enslaved by African tribes. Okay? It appears the black community's precious supply of white guilt has finally run out and people are fed up. The fact of the matter is that in reality, white Americans have been exponentially tolerant and have provided special privileges for blacks, including affirmative action and DEI, and largely because progressive society demands reparations be made for slavery, and no one buys that. Great article that you can share that says the truth again. What is the truth? We don't hate black Americans. We have lots of black friends, okay? But they're destroying themselves on a lie, and you need to tell the truth. You're not a victim, damn it. You can be anything you want in this country if you just get out of the victim mentality. So that's pretty cool. Okay, got to talk about this story. Pentagon formally accepts $400 million Palace in the Sky jet from Qatar, right? This is the big controversy about Trump taking this jet from Qatar. It's worth about, I don't know, they say it's worth between $200 and $400 million. And Trump accepted the plane, okay? Well, his point was, if someone wants to give you $400 million, you got to be smart enough to take it. Yeah, well, maybe not. Okay, now they're going to make it into Air Force One. And I'm concerned because Qatar is like the biggest sponsor of terrorism. Can you really inspect this plane to be sure that there is not some device in it where they could blow the president out of the sky? I don't know, man. If I'd take the chance, I mean, I'd make them take the damn plane completely apart, reassemble it, okay, before I do this. But then this story came out from Conservative Treehouse. And I tell you about this website, theconservativetreehouse.com. You should go there because the guy who runs it, he calls himself Sundance, has interesting insights. And he posted this story that I haven't seen anywhere. Qatar spent millions funding conservative media this year in advance of President Trump's visit. Really? What's this about? Put this into two files. Number one, the confirmation file that it's always about the money. And number two, things that make other things suddenly make sense file. Also, I suggest doing much with this. I wouldn't suggest doing much with this other than making a mental note for you all deep weed walkers. After all, we're not much fun at partisan parties when we don't pretend the corrupt gig is one-sided. Meaning, we're all corrupt. The Republicans are as corrupt or more corrupt than the Democrats, and you got to call it out. So here's his story. Readers here will know well that since the beginning of this year, I have asked what's going on with conservative media and this sudden pro-Qatari stuff they've been pushing. Here's an example from Tucker Carlson. There's a link. Well, apparently, long before the White House announced a historic first ever trip to Qatar, the Qatari Prime Minister, Mohammed bin Abdulrahman Al Thani, began telling their lobbyists in D.C. to reach out to conservative media influencers with lucrative payments to shape favorable pro-Qatari narrative. Tucker Carlson was far from Qatari's only target in this quest to influence conservative media. Established right-of-center outlets like Fox Digital News, Just the News, the New York Post, the Daily Mail, the Washington Examiner were all targeted in varying degrees by foreign Qatari agents in the months following Trump's election, record shows. Things certainly make a lot more sense now. As the saying goes, it tracks. That said, if Qatari had a media strategy to enhance foreign policy agenda with the Trump administration, well, that wouldn't be a surprise. It's just how things are done. However, in the background of the puzzling question about how those decades of outlines of Qatar being correctly called out for corruption disappear, well, it appears that Qatari just paid to get them to disappear. Go figure. What that means is Qatar funds the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar funds Hamas. The Hamas runners, the people running, are in Qatar. And Donald Trump just went there and accepted a jet worth $400 million from them. Now, I trust President Trump. I don't think he gets played very often, okay? I think he understands what's up. And I hope he'll be tough on the Qataris when you need to be. But you need to know that story. Just understand this was no accident. There's something going on here, and it's on our side, and you need to be aware of it, okay? That's an important story. Okay, just got a few more here. I was very much happy to see that Trump signed the bill to protect young people from sextortion or revenge porn, and that's the the takedown bill. President Trump signed the bipartisan Take It Down Act into law on Monday, surrounded by First Lady Melania Trump and lawmakers who help advance the bill. The bill makes publishing non-consensual intimate imagery, real or AI generated, a federal crime. It requires social media platforms like TikTok, Instagram, X, and Facebook to remove content that features explicit images or videos of minors known as child sexual abuse material or revenge porn within 48 hours of being flagged. Mrs. Trump has been a fierce advocate of the Take It Down Act, encouraging lawmakers on both sides of the aisle to push legislation, which they did. Republican South Carolina Rep. Brandon Guffey, who was thanked by President Trump on Monday, worked with Senator Ted Cruz on the legislation. Guffey's 17-year-old son, Gavin Guffey, took his own life 3 years ago after he was a victim of online sexual extortion scam, a growing trend the FBI has recently warned parents about. Guffey told the Daily Wire on Monday that the law will save so many teens from feeling the shame that my son faced. In addition to having the tool to have the images taken down within 48 hours, the person posting it can also face up to 3 years in prison, the lawmaker continued. With the evolution of criminal using AI and morph images, this will be the first bill to my knowledge to address artificial intelligence concerns. I have told you, and I will tell you right now, that's not enough. That's good. I'm for it. It's not enough. If you go to WeThePeopleConvention.org, right, WeThePeopleConvention.org, you search on Dr. Haidt, Haydt, you will see the whole plan. We need to make it illegal for anyone under the age of 16 or under, to use social media. That is the crime. That is what is destroying our youth. And it's not just about a parent should say no. It's not good enough. And it also has to do with playtime and laws that that prevent parents from letting children become children and grow up. Go to WeThePeopleConvention.org, search on Dr. Haidt, Haydt. You'll see a video. You'll see the laws in Florida and in Mississippi that have been passed, or Arkansas that have been passed. Act for this. It's not enough what they just did. It's just not enough. Now I've got another really, really good story here. And I talked to you about this FAIR Act is going to kill DEI. Listen to this thing that they're going to start using to help get rid of the racism that the DOJ used against our law enforcement agencies. Justice Department ends police department reforms agreement as to investigations and lawsuits. Today, we are ending the Biden Civil Rights Division failed experiment on handcuffing local leaders in police departments with factually unjustified consent decrees, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon said. Now, I want you to pay attention. This is a big story, and I'm asking you to share it, and I posted a video about this that you need to share. This is about consent decrees, and this isn't about the Biden administration. This started with Obama. This was Eric Holder's attempt to destroy your local police, and they succeeded. And this came after George Floyd and Hands Up, Don't Shoot and all the other lies, okay, that they perpetrated, but you have no idea the effect of this on your community. The Justice Department announced Wednesday that it has ended investigations into 2 police departments over questionable practices in addition to reform agreements and lawsuits. The Department of Civil Rights Division said it is dismissing lawsuits against the police departments of Louisville, Kentucky, and Minneapolis, Minnesota, which the Biden administration filed after President Trump's election victory. The lawsuits sought to subject the police departments to consent decrees after accusing them of widespread patterns of unconstitutional policing practices by wrongly equating statistical disparities with intentional discrimination and heavily relying on flawed methodologies and incomplete data. Meaning, they charged these police departments with being racist with lies, with things that were not true. The Biden administration filed the lawsuits years after the deaths of Breonna Taylor and George Floyd during confrontations with police in Louisville and Minneapolis, respectively. The division is also closing its investigations into police departments of Phoenix, Arizona, Trenton, New Jersey, Memphis, Tennessee, Mount Vernon, New York, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, and the Louisiana State Police. The DOJ is also retracting the Biden administration's finding of unconstitutional violations on the part of police departments across the country. overbroad police consent decrees divest local control of policing from communities where it belongs, turning that power over to unelected and unaccountable bureaucrats, often with anti-police agendas, Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon said in a statement. Today, we are sending the Biden Civil Rights Division's failed experiments on handcuffing local leaders and police departments with factually unjustified consent decrees. We are ending them. Okay? Now, I didn't do a good job explaining that. I'm asking you to watch and share this video. I just posted it. Trump's new DOJ. It's a Tucker Carlson interview with Harmeet Dillon that will totally blow your mind. It will blow your mind. What she describes was being done is unbelievable. So what would happen is, under the Obama and the leftists, who had what? Leftist mayors and leftist city councils who wanted DEI, who wanted to defund the police in Minneapolis, who wanted to hurt your community. What they did is they filed these federal consent decrees under the guise of civil rights laws, where the federal government basically took over your local police, and your local police had to follow everything they said. Well, who was in charge of this? They would appoint these attorneys. These white shoe leftist attorneys would get paid $1 million a year to tell your police officers, oh, you can't do that. Oh, you can't do that. And guess what? Like we talked about the whole thing with corruption in institutions with the NIH, right? Well, you think the guy's getting paid $1 million a year is ever going to make sure or allow that the consent decree is fulfilled? No, they're not. They just kept changing it. There are cities that paid $220 million over the last 10 years to shut down their own police department. Crime rates, murders are up 60% in these cities. You got to watch this video. It will absolutely freak you out. And then you will understand what Trump is doing. These are not little things. These are major things that have been destroying your life, your community. And not only did we not stop it, we did it on purpose. Harmeet talks about the lawyers that quit and walked out. They had crying sessions. You know why? Because she informed them that you now have to act according to what the President of the United States wants. And they said, no, we don't have to do that. We never do. We get to do whatever we want. I mean it. You got to watch this video. It'll totally freak you out. Okay? Getting rid of these consent decrees will do more to help make city life better. And guess what? That's why Republicans should run for office there. When you take natural gas from Pennsylvania to New England and they've got all those lefty states and cities and you're bringing their costs down, yeah, they'll vote for you if you just try, if you just believe in the system. I'm begging you, share this stuff. And then I'm going to add, on this 2 stories because it's good news. It's still tragic, but it's good news. Biden fought it. Trump settled it. Here's what Ashley Babbitt's family will get. She finally got something. The federal government will pay the family of Ashley Babbitt $5 million for her wrongful death at the hands of police officers during the January 6, 2021 riot at the U.S. Capitol building. This comes after news broke that the White House had reached an undisclosed settlement as a result of lawsuits the family filed against the federal government in 2024. Under the Biden administration, the government was fighting the suit, but this was reversed as President Trump took office. The Washington Post said 2 people briefed on the matter said the Department of Justice has agreed in principle to pay just under $5 million to the Babbitt family, with about 1/3 to go to their attorneys, who include the conservative group Judicial Watch and Alexandria, Virginia lawyer Richard Driscoll. The 2 people spoke on the condition of anonymity. Babbitt's lawyers and spokesman for the U.S. Attorney General's office for Washington, D.C., which is handling the case, did not immediately respond to requests for comments. Babbitt was a 35-year-old Air Force veteran. She was fatally shot in the neck by Capitol Police Officer Michael Byrd, who has faced no accountability for the shooting. Hopefully that's coming. The lawsuit pointed out that Babbitt was unarmed and had her hands in the air at the moment Byrd shot her. However, Byrd claimed he could not see her hands or what she had in her backpack. U.S. Capitol Police Chief Thomas Manger railed against the settlement, saying it is extremely disappointing and I completely disagree with the Department of Justice decision. Really, pal? Really? She was shot in cold blood. And you're going to disagree with that? Yeah, I want to see you testify at the Byrd trial when he gets brought up under charges. This move is sure to infuriate people on the left who temporarily reversed their anti-police stance because the victim was a white Trump supporter. In fact, they are already complaining about it on social media. Wah, wah, wah. Cry me a river. We're in charge now. You lose. And we need to get financial compensation for all the January 6th political prisoners. And there's talk about that. This is not enough. Ed Martin said that. J6 is just starting, folks. It ain't ending. But that was good news. At least bring some good news to the family. All right. I'm going to wrap with this. Nan and I had the opportunity to go to the Summit County, Ohio, a Republican Lincoln Day dinner last Saturday night. And Vivek Ramaswamy was the speaker. And here's a picture of him that I took from my table. And he spoke wonderfully. He's a very gifted orator. And he has an incredibly inspirational and aspirational speech. He wants to make America the greatest state in the country. He wants us to have the best education, the best manufacturing, the best energy production, the best, of everything, the best medicine. And he talked about how, we just can't settle. And he talks about, and for those of you who don't know, Ohio used to be Silicon Valley. In 1900, Cleveland, Ohio had more patent filings than the rest of the world combined. We had Standard Oil. We had U.S. Steel. We had the rubber companies, Goodyear and Firestone. We had all this unbelievable entrepreneurship was happening in Ohio. Ohio, that's why we had so many generals from Ohio, so many astronauts, so many presidents, maybe another one coming with J.D. Vance, okay? Because Ohio had a culture of entrepreneurship and self-reliance and just get the government out of my way and we can do this, okay? But something hit me when I listened to his speech because he talked about how we've got to work hard to do this stuff. And I realized that people don't want to work hard. That the left has undermined our culture. There's 8 million people, able-bodied men and women on Medicare not working because we're paying them not to work. Do people really want to make America great again? Are you willing to do the work? It brought to me, Dennis Prager said something, and we're still praying for his healing, and all of you should pray for that. He's still suffering from his fall. But he said one time on his show, and it had a profound impact on me. He said, I always thought that every human in their heart longed to be free. That was their driving force. They wanted to be free to do what they wanted to do. He said, but I'm wrong. I've learned in my life that they don't long to be free. They long to be taken care of. That's not good. That's sad. And we, you and I, we the people, we have to get people to realize that work is good. It's rewarding. We have to build these pipelines. When they bring this manufacturing back, we've got to encourage our kids and stuff to learn the trades and the skills to work there. If America's going to be great again, it's not Donald Trump just signing an executive order. It's not even Congress passing a budget. It's us. It's us making it happen, right? So as you enjoy your long Memorial Day weekend, remember the flag, remember, go to the cemetery, visit those relatives who gave their life to give us this opportunity to work hard to have this country. And, tell other people, give the names of the people you know who died in battle. That's what Memorial Day is a week. But then talk to them about all the things in this podcast. Share these links with people when you wish them, a happy Memorial Day. And remember, it's a solemn holiday. Write to me at info@wethepeopleconvention.org if you have any ideas or questions or want to challenge me if I said something wrong. But most of all, tell people about this podcast. That's what it's all about, okay? Tell people about this podcast, because we can't win the fight if we don't know what the fight is. You got to know what's really going on, and that's why you watch this podcast. And if you're new, I hope you enjoyed it today. I hope you'll use the chapters player to send links of various stories around. But I really hope you have a great holiday weekend with family and friends and celebrate the freedom that over 1 million men and women died to give you. That's what we're celebrating. The gift they gave us by giving their lives for us. All right? You've been listening to the We the People Convention News and Opinion Podcast. My name is Tom Zawistowski. May God bless you, and God has already blessed America. See you next week.
Can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights, oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets rattling, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land under the fray, and the home of the brave? Because we are the brave. Yes, we are the brave. We'll fight till we